Welcome to the debate. Imagine sprinting for 90 minutes inside a literal sauna.
Right, just a solid wall of heat.
Yeah, exactly. If you're listening to this and you've ever gone for a run in, say, the middle of July, you know exactly what that wall of heat feels like when it hits your chest.
It's brutal.
Now imagine doing that while being chased by the greatest athletes on Earth. As we look toward the upcoming World Cup, the most formidable opponent stepping onto the pitch won't be wearing a jersey at all. It is, well, it's the climate itself.
It really is the ultimate invisible opponent this time around.
It is, and based on a sobering, highly detailed analysis from Reuters and the World Weather Attribution Group, we are looking at severe extreme heat facing this tournament. And it forces us to ask a critical, foundational question.
Right. Are the countermeasures that FIFA has put in place actually sufficient to manage the physiological risks to these elite athletes?
Exactly. Or does the sheer scale of this environmental challenge fundamentally compromise both player safety and, the intrinsic quality of the tournament itself? My stance is grounded in the operational reality. I look at FIFA's targeted mitigation strategies and I see a framework that effectively neutralizes the severe medical risks for these elite, highly acclimated athletes. Instead of a safety crisis, this extreme heat is being turned into a fascinating tactical variable.
Well, I look at the exact same data and come to a wildly different conclusion. When you actually break down the numbers, that a staggering volume of matches being played in fundamentally unsafe conditions exposes a massive systemic infrastructure failure. It's a failure that severely degrades players' physical performance and ultimately directly diminishes the quality of the sport we all love.
To really dig into this, we have to look objectively at what is actually being implemented. And crucially, who is stepping onto that pitch?
Sure.
If you read the experts consulted in the Reuters analysis, they make a vital point right up front. Widespread medical emergencies resulting from heat exposure at this tournament are highly unlikely. And we have to explain why that is, because we are not talking about weekend warriors playing in a Sunday league.
No, obviously not. These are the top fractional % of athletes on the planet.
Right. World Cup players are the absolute pinnacle of elite athleticism, and their bodies are highly acclimated to warmer temperatures. When sports scientists talk about elite acclimation, they aren't just saying these guys are used to feeling hot. It's a biological adaptation.
Their blood plasma increases, right?
Exactly. When elite athletes train in high heat, their blood plasma volume actually increases. Their sweat glands become more efficient, so they start sweating earlier in the exertion process. And their sweat actually contains less sodium, so they retain crucial electrolytes better than a normal human.
They retain them better, yeah.
Their bodies are hyper-adapted machines built for thermal stress.
I don't disagree with the biology of heat acclimation, but
let me just add the structural layer to that biological one. FIFA hasn't been passive here. They've introduced proactive, proportionate mitigation measures. We are seeing mandatory 3-minute hydration breaks per half.
Right.
We are seeing dedicated, highly engineered cooling facilities for both players and fans, and a state of heightened medical readiness across the board. These aren't just suggestions. They are calculated, enforced interventions designed to effectively mitigate the risk.
See, that sounds incredibly reassuring on paper. But when you look at the raw data provided by the Climate Research Group, I just don't buy that these measures are sufficient. We are talking about systemic realities that no amount of biological acclimation or, mid-game water breaks can fully overcome. Let's look at the actual numbers.
Okay, let's look at them.
We have 104 matches in this expanded tournament. According to the analysis, approximately a quarter of those matches are likely to be played in conditions that outright exceed established international safety limits.
But those safety limits are often generalized.
They are generalized for human biology, which even elite athletes are bound by. Furthermore, over a third of the matches are scheduled in stadiums completely lacking air conditioning. The severity of these forecasts is alarming.
It's a forecast, though.
A very reliable one. The researchers are predicting that up to 5 matches could take place under conditions so dangerous that standard medical advice would demand outright postponement. When you rely so heavily on this concept of elite acclimation, you're minimizing the immense physiological toll that extreme heat takes on the human body. FIFA's hydration breaks and cooling centers, They are reactive bandages.
I wouldn't call them bandages.
They don't solve the core issue of the ambient environment. They just force players to drastically reduce their physical exertion, which results in a compromised, diluted tournament.
You're calling it an infrastructure failure, but I think that completely ignores the staggering level of environmental control FIFA has engineered where it matters most to the sport, the pitch itself. If you want to talk about infrastructure investment, look at the grass.
The grass?
Yes, the grass. FIFA has made an unprecedented $5 million investment into the playing surface alone. They brought in Dr. John Suro-Chan.
The turf expert?
Exactly, the leading turf grass expert in the world. He spent 5 years meticulously researching and developing the perfect grass surfaces across 16 stadiums in 3 different countries. Once this specific breed of grass was cultivated, it was transported to the stadiums in refrigerated trucks.
Refrigerated trucks for the grass. Let's just keep that in mind.
It's an incredible feat. It's installed on a highly specific, custom combination of soil, peat, and a plastic structure. They even put a waterproof liner underneath it to protect the actual concrete stadium floors. And here is where the mechanical brilliance really shines. They have moisture sensors placed directly into the root zones beneath the surface.
The drainage system, right.
Yeah, this allows stadium operators to entirely saturate the field and then completely drain it in exactly 3 minutes.
That is an astonishing piece of agricultural engineering.
It is staggering, and they maintain this grass at precisely 22 millimeters in height. And if you're listening and wondering why a fraction of a millimeter matters to a soccer game, it's all about the friction coefficient.
Right.
If you cut that grass even 1 millimeter shorter, the ball travels unnaturally fast. It skids off the surface and passes slide right past the players. If you leave it longer, it creates too much drag and slows the ball down. The 22 millimeters creates the exact perfect amount of drag on the ball.
So it's incredibly precise.
Exactly. My point in bringing all this up is this. This level of microscopic control proves FIFA is deeply, almost obsessively committed to controlling environmental variables to protect player performance. The heat mitigation strategies, the cooling facilities, the 3-minute hydration breaks, they are just another facet of this highly controlled precision ecosystem.
I hear you, but you realize your analogy perfectly illustrates my core concern, right? In fact, it reveals a staggering, almost tragic misalignment of priorities. Think about what you just described to me.
I described a massive investment in the game.
We have grass being transported in refrigerated trucks. We have root zones being monitored by sophisticated moisture sensors, waterproof liners, and precision drainage systems to ensure the dirt is perfectly optimized. Yet simultaneously, over a third of the stadiums do not have air conditioning for the human beings running on that perfectly manicured grass.
Well, air conditioning in open stadium is...
We have reached an era where we are prioritizing the technological perfection of the stage over the biological safety of the actors.
I think that's a bit dramatic.
Is it? We are meticulously controlling the temperature and moisture of the dirt, while allowing the air above it to push human physiology past its breaking point. What good is flawlessly engineered 22 millimeter grass if the athletes sprinting across it are operating in unsafe conditions where medical experts recommend postponement? The infrastructure is focused on the wrong biological entity.
I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning because it assumes the ambient heat will simply break the athletes rather than challenge them to adapt. Let's talk about how the heat impacts actual gameplay, because that is where physical performance meets sporting intelligence. Yes, the extreme temperatures will force a more conservative tactical approach.
Very conservative.
Teams are not going to be able to sustain a high-intensity press for 90 minutes. You aren't going to see teams sprinting full tilt to win the ball back deep in the opponent's half all game.
Right. They can't. It's physiologically impossible.
But I don't view this as a failure of the tournament. I view it as a natural evolution of strategy. Football has always been about adapting to environmental constraints.
There is a very distinct line between a tactical constraint and a physical hazard.
But look at how we treat altitude. We have matches scheduled in high-altitude locations for this tournament, like Mexico City. The thinner air up there fundamentally changes the physics of the game. Take the new official Adidas ball, the Trionda.
Right.
It has a brilliant design with the fewest panels in World Cup history and almost no stitching. which gives it a remarkably smooth flight. Because the air is thinner in Mexico City, there is less air resistance. That Trianda ball is going to travel faster and far more unpredictably.
Yes, the aerodynamics change.
Now, teams don't complain that the altitude is a systemic failure or a hazard. They adapt their tactics. They play shorter, crisper passes because long balls fly out of bounds. They manage their aerobic output because oxygen is scarce. Adapting to the extreme heat is no different. It means conserving energy, choosing exactly when to sprint and when to drop back into a low block.
And for those listening who might not be tactical obsessives, a low block is basically when a team retreats deep into their own half, packs their defenders close together, and just absorbs pressure rather than actively chasing the ball. It's a pure energy conservation tactic.
Exactly. Choosing when to deploy a low block versus when to counterattack in this heat is a highly valid test of elite sporting intelligence. It shifts the game from being a pure athletic track meet into a high-stakes chess match.
Calling tactical conservatism induced by heat exhaustion sporting intelligence is intellectually generous to a fault.
I think it's just realism.
The source material we are looking at explicitly notes that this forced conservatism will lead to less thrilling matches, and we need to explain why they are forced into this. When we analyze the impact of extreme heat on players' physical performance, we have to look at the actual mechanics of human thermoregulation. Do you know what happens to stroke volume when a player sprints in extreme heat?
The heart rate elevates to maintain cardiac output.
Right, but why? When a player is operating in extreme heat, their body desperately needs to cool itself down. To do that, the body diverts a massive amount of blood flow away from the working muscles, the quads, the hamstrings, the calves,
and sends it out to the skin.
Exactly, out to the skin so they can sweat. But that blood is carrying oxygen. So the working muscles are essentially being starved of oxygen. Because so much blood is pulling at the skin, less blood returns to the heart. That means the amount of blood the heart pumps per beat, the stroke volume, drops significantly.
which triggers cardiac drift.
Exactly. To compensate for pumping less blood per beat, the heart rate skyrockets just to maintain the same basic level of movement. A player jogging at a light pace will have the heart rate of someone in an all-out sprint.
Which is incredibly taxing.
We are not just talking about players intelligently deciding to be strategic and play a low block. We are talking about physiological throttling. They literally do not have the oxygen in their muscles to perform. When the environment artificially caps physical performance, preventing superstar players from showcasing the remarkable, explosive football skills they are known for, the mitigation has failed. It ceases to be a tactical choice. It becomes a physical surrender to unsafe conditions.
But that physiological reality is exactly why the 3-minute hydration breaks during each half are so critical. They aren't just for taking a sip of water. They are structured, mandatory physiological resets.
3 minutes isn't a long time.
But by pausing the game for 3 minutes, you allow that heart rate to drop. You allow the blood to redistribute from the skin back to the muscles. It breaks the exhausting 45-minute halves into manageable physiological blocks. Furthermore, we have to recognize how much physical and cognitive burden is actually being lifted off the humans on the pitch by the technological infrastructure surrounding them.
Are you talking about the referees now?
Both the referees and the players. Let's go back to the tree on the ball we just talked about. It isn't just an aerodynamic marvel. It is literally an active piece of technology. It is the first World Cup ball that actually has to be plugged into a wall and charged like a smartphone.
Because it houses a motion sensor, right?
Yes, a sensor suspended precisely in the center of the ball that tracks its movements an astonishing 500 times per second. This seamlessly integrates with the stadium cameras and the VAR system, the video assistant referee.
Right.
Normally, if there's a tight offside call, a human referee has to sprint up the sideline, keeping perfectly in line with the last defender, while simultaneously watching the ball being kicked 40 yards away. It's incredibly physically demanding and cognitively exhausting.
Oh, absolutely.
By automating these incredibly difficult judgments with the 500 Hz sensor, we are removing a massive layer of physical running and mental fatigue from the officials. And for the players, we are creating a more precise, structured game with less arguing and less wasted energy. The technology absorbs the friction of the match, making the heat a manageable variable.
You bring up the technological infrastructure, which is fascinating. but it actually underscores my exact point about the physical degeneration of the athletes. Let's look at Lenovo's 3D tracking systems, which is the very technology feeding those automated offside calls you just praised.
An amazing piece of tech.
According to the material, every single player is digitally scanned before the tournament begins. The process takes about 1 second per athlete and creates a perfect 3D digital twin of their skeletal structure and body mass.
Right, which provides unprecedented accuracy. Lenovo originally developed this concept to orchestrate robotics in 3D spaces, like automated warehouses.
Exactly. But consider the fundamental flaw in applying a robotics paradigm to human biology under extreme duress. That digital scan is taken exactly once, before the tournament begins. But athletes are not robots.
Well, of course not.
A digital twin doesn't sweat. Human bodies change dramatically over a month-long tournament, and extreme heat acts as a massive accelerator for that physical depletion.
They lose water weight during a match, sure, but they rehydrate.
It's more than just water weight. Players can lose 3 to 5 pounds of mass in a single match due to massive sweat rates. As the tournament drags on into the 3rd or 4th week, they alter their biomechanical strides. If a player has a micro tear in his hamstring or if his calves are chronically cramping from electrolyte loss, his running gait completely changes.
Minor changes. Yeah.
But because of the extreme heat we are discussing, this physical degeneration will be far more pronounced. So we have this flawless static technological model, a perfect digital twin from day one, tracking a human body that is actively deteriorating, changing shape and altering its movement patterns under the environmental strain. The machine remains perfect, but the human is exhausted.
That is a very compelling, almost poetic way to frame it. The flawless machine versus the broken human. But I think you are misinterpreting how the Lenovo technology actually operates under the hood. Lenovo's representative, Wang, addresses this exact concern in the analysis. He explicitly states that minute changes in a player's body, a slightly altered stride, a drop in weight from sweating, won't materially affect the outcome of the millimeter-precise offside calls.
How could it not? If the computer thinks your shoulder is 2 inches wider than it actually is by week 4, that's the difference between being onside and offside.
Because of the sophistication of the artificial intelligence driving the system. The AI stabilized system doesn't just blindly overlay a static day one model onto the field. It constantly adjusts for complex real-time variables.
Like what?
It factors in the stadium lighting, it factors in the weather, and crucially, it tracks the real-time speed and velocity of the player. The physical volume changes you're talking about are mathematically negligible for the physics calculations required to draw an offside line. The AI's modeling parameters are incredibly robust. They are designed specifically to handle human variance.
I understand the AI compensates for velocity, but it still relies on a baseline physiological map that is degrading.
But let's not forget the larger picture of what this technology achieves. Lenovo's system was designed to reduce the analytics gap between football's richest federations and the underdogs. A massive federation like Brazil or France has hundreds of analysts tracking every data point. Smaller nations don't.
It's a great tool for the analysts, yes.
This system gives every single team access to a level of real-time data and computing power that genuinely democratizes the tournament. So yes, the heat is a heavy burden. But when you combine FIFA's physical interventions, the hydration blocks, the advanced cooling centers, with the reliance on precise technological assistance like the Trianda Ball's 500 Hz sensor, it ensures the game is managed safely. It shifts the burden of extreme heat away from being an unmanageable medical crisis and turns it into a structured, manageable parameter.
A manageable parameter that still forces 25% of the matches into mathematically unsafe conditions. I really have to push back on the idea that democratizing data somehow democratizes the physical reality of heat stroke.
That's not what I'm saying.
Providing a smaller nation with excellent analytics does not lower their core body temperature. And even Wang himself admits there is a very clear divide of roles and responsibilities here. Lenovo is purely a technology provider. FIFA is the entity responsible for actually running the tournament.
Right. FIFA maintains the duty of care.
And Wang emphasizes that despite all this incredible AI, the human referee still has the final authority. So picture this. You have a human referee out there in 100-degree heat, suffering from the exact same cardiac drift and oxygen deprivation we just talked about, trying to process augmented data fed to him by a supercomputer.
It assists him.
The rulebook officially credits the human official, but the actual decision depends entirely on a technical system because the human is too physically compromised to keep up. It's a beautiful, elegant technological system, I grant you that, but it doesn't lower the ambient temperature in the stadium by a single degree.
No, it doesn't.
The fundamental reality remains we are applying centimeter-level 3D modeling and microchip-embedded footballs to a game where the basic infrastructure, air conditioning, is missing for a third of the venues. We are masking a physiological crisis with technological brilliance. When world-renowned climate researchers are warning that matches might literally need to be postponed to avoid hospitalizing players, we have crossed a very clear line. We have moved from a fascinating tactical challenge to a basic failure of duty of care.
I hear your concern, but we ultimately have to trust the medical experts cited in the analysis, who maintain that widespread emergencies are highly unlikely. These athletes have access to the most sophisticated sports science, recovery protocols, and real-time physiological monitoring in human history.
They do, but they are still human.
The cooling facilities provided by FIFA are not just shade umbrellas on the sideline. They are highly engineered recovery zones designed to rapidly lower core body temperatures. When you combine that elite biological acclimatization with enforced rest periods, the human body is remarkably resilient. Yes, the matches will look very different. A team playing in a non-air-conditioned stadium might be forced to rely on a low block. They might utilize the try-on-to-ball smooth aerodynamics for quick, energy-efficient counterattacks, rather than trying to sustain possession with a high press. But to me, that demands a different, perhaps deeper type of brilliance.
But is it the brilliance we tune in to see? If a team has to play a low block entirely out of self-preservation because sprinting could induce literal heat exhaustion, we have lost something essential about the beautiful game. The grass might be kept at a perfect 22 millimeters, draining in 3 minutes thanks to microscopic root sensors, but the players running on it are being physiologically throttled. I fear we are sacrificing the physical spectacle of the sport on the altar of logistical convenience.
I think we've arrived at a fascinating intersection here. To summarize how I see this, I truly believe that while the environmental realities of this World Cup are daunting, FIFA's physical interventions, the advanced cooling facilities, the mandated physiological resets through hydration breaks, coupled with the sheer elite conditioning and acclimation of the athletes, successfully shift the burden.
Right, from a crisis to a challenge.
Exactly. It moves from being an unmanageable medical crisis to a profound tactical challenge. The heat, much like the high altitude in Mexico City or the unique aerodynamics of the try-on-to-ball, simply becomes another variable that the greatest minds and bodies in football must conquer.
And for my part, I maintain that no amount of in-game hydration or enforced tactical conservatism can offset the fundamental flaw of scheduling a quarter of the matches above established safety limits, particularly when over a third of the stadiums lack basic air conditioning.
That is the stark contrast in our views.
You cannot acclimate your way out of fundamentally unsafe atmospheric conditions. While the technology tracking the game is flawless, relying on it to distract from the physiological toll is a systemic failure. It ultimately dilutes the physical spectacle and degrades the quality of the sport.
It is clear we both agree on one undeniable fact. The extreme heat will completely transform the pace, the visual aesthetic, and the tactical reality of this tournament. These matches will be distinctly different from previous iterations, demanding entirely new strategies from players and coaches alike.
Absolutely. We are in stark disagreement over whether this forced shift represents a successful, calculated management of risk or a glaring failure of tournament infrastructure that fundamentally compromises the athletes.
It leaves us with a compelling image to reflect on as the tournament approaches. On one hand, we have the perfect climate-controlled digital twins living inside Lenovo's servers, alongside flawlessly engineered 22-millimeter grass equipped with 3-minute drainage sensors.
And on the other hand, we have the sweating, exhausted, unpredictable reality of human physiology battling the elements.
Right. It leaves us to consider, as we watch these matches unfold,
whether we have prioritized the perfection of the stage over the actors upon it, and whether the invisible hand of the climate is ultimately the greatest playmaker shaping the beautiful game.